joining me to speak more about this is Santaco spokesperson Thabiso Molelekwa. Thabiso, good evening to you and thank you so much for joining us. Tell us about this fund and who stands to benefit.
Well, the fund was the initiative by Santaco realizing that there was a need for the taxi industry to get some form of relief that would mitigate against the impact of coronavirus. The intended beneficiaries of the fund will be all the taxi drivers, the taxi operators, queue marshals, and as well as the staff working in the various associations in the country.
Sure. I mean, Thabiso, when you speak about, the taxi drivers and queue marshals, many of them earn their living in cash. So how then would the fund be able to allocate, the necessary funds that those people need? How would that be? How would you be able to establish that?
Well, it is a regrettable situation in this regard because remember the funds that would be accumulated as compensation to the intended beneficiaries would come from various people and companies, therefore must be accounted for. So it is necessary that the money is managed or distributed in such a way there is accurate accountability thereof. So what we are going to do is that in the instances where, each driver or a queue marshal does not have a bank account, the system through which they will make such applications for compensation provides them to use the account details of a family member who should have, at the time of using the banking details thereof, have consented to the use of his or her account for that particular purpose.
And Thabiso, I mean, why is this an independent fund? I mean, government has implemented the regulations, 70%, capacity in taxis. Surely they know the impact that this will have on the taxi industry. Why are they not involved in setting up and how this fund actually will operate?
Well, government does not necessarily understand the real impact of the taxi industry in this regard, the real impact of coronavirus on the taxi industry in this regard. But I must indicate that we did, before we even started this process, we did approach the Minister of Transport to raise the matter. And at the time, the Minister still wanted to apply his mind on whether this was the right way of ensuring that there is compensation to the industry, and this is why we pressed ahead. But we realized later that also the minister has warmed to the idea of a relief fund. And the reason why I'm saying that the government does not necessarily understand the real impact of coronavirus on the industry is precisely because since lockdown started, the taxi industry has lost a minimum of about 20 million rands a day. Now, when you look at that to date, you'd realize that there is millions and millions of rands that have been lost that are likely not to be recovered. And unless there's an urgent intervention that is put in place, 6 months to 9 months down the line, you would have a lot of operators who will not be able to operate their business or continue with their business as a result of the impact of coronavirus. It would be incorrect to assume that after lockdown, and everything goes back to normal, if it ever does, nobody would be able to suffer the long-term consequences of the impact of corona.
Thabiso, I just want to go back to a question I asked you earlier on just to get clarity from you. And the question is that if I'm a taxi driver and I need to prove that I make a certain amount of money, how would I be able to do that if, a lot of the money that I get is given to me in cash by the taxi owner? So how then would the fund go about giving relief and really getting the actual figure that people need?
Well, my apologies. I think I misunderstood your question. Firstly, this is a compensation, so it does not mean if Thabiso earns 1,000 rand, he will get the 1,000 rand. You may get half of that. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the figures that will be determined by the funds will be sourced from our structures who are currently busy with that process as we speak. Therefore, whatever the driver says he puts or she puts in the application as what he or she earns at the end of each day or per week, the system would be able to verify that against the information that would have been gathered through our structures already. So there are mitigating factors that the system will have to ensure that the amount that the driver or the queue marshal put in place is the actual figure.
And how will the members be able to apply for this relief fund? Is it only an online portal?
There are three platforms that are used, or that will be used rather. The first one is through the website of the fund that will be announced. The second one is through a call center where applicants or intended beneficiaries can be able to call. A call center which is managed by a staff complement of about 1,000 agents. And then there is also a WhatsApp facility where they will be able to, through their own WhatsApp app, they will be able to access the facility of the fund, which enables them to directly communicate with an agent instantly, ask questions and instantly get responses to. It's part and parcel of the application process. The reason why we have done these three platforms is we try to make it as broad as possible and to make the access as broad as possible, but we want to eliminate physical interaction as possible, as much as possible because of the social distancing policy.
Sure.